Get out of my house!
The bag hit the floor before Somto understood what was happening. Auntie Ujunwa stood in the doorway, breathing hard, one hand still gripping Somto's clothes. Somto stared at her, all because she had refused to change one food label. Auntie, that batch is old. I will not put tomorrow's date on it. Ujunwa's face twisted. After everything I have done for you? I fed you when your parents died. I gave you a roof. And now you want to teach me how to run my own business? She kicked the bag toward the gate. Then go and see how far your honesty will feed you. Somto's fingers tightened around the little notebook she had carried for years. No savings worth mentioning. No home. No powerful relative waiting outside. Only her phone, her documents, and the clothes at her feet. But what happened after Somto walked through that gate would expose something her aunt never understood about her. And the billionaire she would later meet would not simply hand her a better life. He would give her one door. What Somto did with that door changed everything. So don't leave this story halfway. And before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. If you enjoy stories where dignity eventually gets its day, subscribe and stay with us. Because Somto had just lost her home. She had no idea she was walking toward the first life that would truly belong to her. 10 minutes earlier, the house had smelled of pepper, onions, and hot oil. The kind of smell that normally meant money was coming. Ujunwa's catering business had landed a large order for a church anniversary in Surulere. Rice, chicken, moi moi, small chops, more than 200 plates. For Ujunwa, that meant one thing. Nobody was allowed to slow the kitchen down, not even common sense. Somto had been checking the cold room when she saw the cartons. She opened one, then another. The date labels had been removed. Not carefully. Torn. She knew those cartons. She had written the receiving note herself 3 days earlier. Auntie? Ujunwa was shouting instructions near the gas burners. What? Somto carried one carton to the table. This chicken is from the old delivery. So? You said we should use only the new batch for tomorrow. Ujunwa did not even turn. Mix it. Somto hesitated. Auntie, some of this has been kept too long. That made Ujunwa look at her. Who told you? I received it. And who owns this business? Somto looked at the red marker beside the stack of labels. She understood then. Ujunwa wanted her to write the next day's date. Her stomach tightened. Auntie, I can cook with what is still safe, but I cannot change the date. The kitchen helpers became quieter. Nobody stopped moving, but everybody started hearing. Ujunwa lowered her voice. That was worse. Somto, take the marker. Somto did not. Take it. No. The word came out soft. Too soft for the trouble it caused. Ujunwa walked toward her. The bright ruby blouse she wore had a patch of flour on one shoulder. Her emerald wrapper was tied high around her waist. Sweat shone near her hairline beneath the matching head wrap. Say it again. Somto's burnt orange blouse suddenly felt too warm. I said, I cannot change the date. Ujunwa laughed once. No humor in it. So now you are the owner? No. You are the food safety officer. No, Auntie. You are the one feeding everybody in this house. Somto said nothing. That silence irritated Ujunwa more than an argument would have. For 8 years, Somto had learned the rules of that house. Do not answer back. Do not complain about work. Do not ask how much a client paid. Do not ask where your own money went. And above all, never allow Ujunwa to feel that the child she had rescued had become an adult. Somto had lost both parents within 11 months when she was 14. Her father died first after a long illness. Her mother followed the next year after complications from another health problem. By the time relatives finished holding meetings about who would take her, Ujunwa had already brought her to Lagos. For that, Somto had loved her. Still did, in a difficult way. Ujunwa had bought her school uniform, paid examination fees, put food in front of her. And every time Somto tried to speak about what came after school, Ujunwa reminded her of it. I carried you when everybody disappeared. I paid for you. I made sure you did not end up in the street. At first, those words sounded like sacrifice. Years later, they sounded like an invoice. Somto started helping in the catering kitchen after secondary school. At the beginning, it was temporary, just until business improves. Then it became mornings at the market, then receiving supplies, then counting stock, then writing customer balances, then checking what had been paid and what was still owed. Somto discovered she had a head for numbers, not the kind that could solve university mathematics in one glance. Something more useful in that kitchen. She noticed when 6 cartons became 5. She noticed when a supplier changed the price twice in 1 month. She noticed when a customer had paid a deposit, but the receipt book said otherwise. She started keeping a small notebook, because Ujunwa's records were never complete. That notebook was the one in her hand now. Ujunwa pointed at it. Everything inside that book came from my business. Somto swallowed. Yes. Everything you know. You learned in my house. Yes. Then write the date. No. That was the moment the argument stopped being about chicken. Ujunwa ordered her upstairs. Somto thought she was being sent away from the kitchen. Instead, 5 minutes later, Ujunwa came down carrying her bag. Not packed properly, just clothes pushed inside. A sandal hanging from the zip. You want to behave like a woman? Ujunwa said. Fine. Be a woman outside, auntie. Go. Somto looked toward the helpers. Nobody met her eyes. She could not blame them. Their wages came from Ujunwa. Somto climbed the stairs one last time. She took her national identity documents, school papers, 2 shirts, her charger, toothbrush, 1 pair of trousers, and the envelope where she kept the little cash she had. 38,000 naira. That was all she could call hers without argument. She came downstairs. Ujunwa was waiting at the gate. For one strange second, Somto hoped her aunt would stop her, not apologize. Just stop her, maybe say, enough, come inside. Ujunwa folded her arms. Well, Somto picked up the bag. Good night, auntie. Ujunwa's mouth fell open. You are going? Somto nearly laughed. You told me to go. You think I will beg you? No, then go. Somto went. The gate shut behind her with a metal clang. She stood on the pavement. Cars moved along the road beyond the estate. A generator hummed somewhere behind a wall. The air was humid and smelled faintly of rain, exhaust, and fried plantain from a roadside stall. She had imagined leaving that house many times. In every version, she had money, a job, maybe a room, something. Reality gave her 1 nylon bag, 1 old travel bag, a notebook, and 38,000 naira. Her first instinct was to call Ujunwa again. Not because she wanted to go back, because fear has habits. Her thumb hovered over the name. Then she scrolled down to Grace George. Grace answered on the 4th ring. Somto. Santi Grace. Good evening. What happened? Somto hated how quickly her voice cracked. I need somewhere to stay tonight. Grace did not ask for the whole story. Not then. How much money do you have? Somto looked down at the pavement. 38,000. Any bank card? Yes. Your ID? With me. Phone charged? 61%. Good. Send me your location. That was it, practical. No sermon, no dramatic gasp. 40 minutes later, Somto was sitting in the passenger seat of Grace's small Toyota, her bag between her feet. Grace wore a pale grey blouse and had her hair braided straight back. She looked at Somto only once before pulling away. Did she hit you? No. Did she keep your documents? No. Do you need to report anything tonight? Somto shook her head. Grace nodded. Then tonight we deal with sleep. Tomorrow we deal with money. The place Grace took her was not a shelter in the way Somto had imagined. It was a modest transitional house run by a small community organization that helped women facing sudden housing problems. Nothing glamorous. 4 bedrooms. Shared kitchen. A sitting room with 2 old sofas. A list of rules taped beside the fridge. Grace explained them. No visitors after 9, everyone cleaned. No borrowing without permission. Maximum stay depended on each case. Somto listened. Can I pay something? Grace looked at her. Not tonight. I don't want. I know what you don't want. Grace pointed toward a mattress. Sleep first. Somto sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time that night, nobody was asking her to prove gratitude. Her body did not know what to do with that. She cried quietly. Not for long. Then she washed her face, plugged in her phone, and opened the notebook. On the first empty page, she wrote 4 lines. Money, 38,000. Need. Work. Need. Room. Do not go back because of fear. She stared at the last line, then underlined it once. The next morning, Grace handed her tea and bread. You said you used to do accounts? Not accounts like an accountant. I wrote orders, checked stock, customer balances, supplier payments. Computer? Basic. Excel? Small, Grace smiled. Small can become medium. She gave Somto a contact, a woman named Mrs. Johnson who helped place casual staff for warehouses and food distribution centers. By noon, Somto was on a danfo, holding her bag against her knees and rehearsing what she would say. She did not tell Mrs. Johnson her aunt had thrown her out. She said what mattered. I can receive stock. I can count. I can write simple records. I have worked around food preparation for years. Mrs. Johnson looked at her school certificate. No degree. No, Ma. Any formal experience letter? No reference? Somto paused. That was the problem. Her only serious work history belonged to the woman who had just thrown her out. I can give you a character reference from Mrs. Grace George. Mrs. Johnson tapped the desk. There is 1 day casual work tomorrow. Receiving support. Coker Harvest and Logistics. Somto knew the name. Everybody in that part of the food business did. Coker Harvest moved packaged foods, grains, chilled products, restaurant supplies, and other goods through a network of warehouses and distributors. Its founder, Niyi Coker, was the kind of man business newspapers described with numbers that made ordinary people stop reading. Billionaire. Somto had seen his face online before, always in a suit, always smiling beside somebody important. She had never imagined entering one of his warehouses. Mrs. Johnson pushed a form toward her. It is not a permanent job. If they don't need you again, that is all. I understand. Report by 7. Somto was there by 6:40. The warehouse in Ikeja was already alive. Forklifts moved. Drivers argued over paperwork. Plastic crates scraped against concrete. Men in reflective vests shouted bay numbers. The first thing Bode Williams told her was, "Do not try to impress anybody." He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a voice that could cut through forklift noise without becoming a shout. "You are casual support. Stay where you are assigned. If you are not sure, ask." "Yes, sir. And don't call me sir every 2 minutes." "Yes." Somto stopped. Bode looked at her. She almost smiled. He pointed toward receiving. "Go." Her job was basic. Count, mark, move documents, confirm quantities with the receiving clerk. She liked it immediately, not because it was easy, because the numbers were supposed to mean something. 20 crates meant 20 crates. Rejected stock was marked rejected. A supervisor signed. A driver signed. There was a place where confusion could be found. By 11 in the morning, confusion found her. 3 small suppliers were arguing near Bay 4. One woman kept waving a delivery note. "You people said I brought 48 crates." The receiving clerk shook his head. "Madam, system shows 41 accepted, but 7 were moved there." He pointed toward a red-marked area. "Rejected." "Rejected for what?" "Damaged packaging." The woman followed his finger. The 7 crates were there. Somto noticed something. The rejected crates had already been counted when the truck was unloaded. Then, when they were moved to the red area, someone had entered them as a separate rejection deduction against the accepted total. 48 had become 41 twice. Somto frowned. She checked the paper, then the tally sheet, then the handwritten Bay record. Maybe she was wrong. She checked again. Same problem. She looked for the clerk. He was already arguing with another driver. Somto waited, then found Bode. "Mr. Williams." He did not look up from his tablet. "Yes? I think there is a count problem in Bay 4. Tell the receiving clerk." "I did." "He is handling another issue." Bode looked up now. "What problem?" Somto explained. He listened without expression. When she finished, he said, "You are on your first shift." "Yes." "So why are you convinced everybody else missed something?" "I'm not convinced." Bode's eyebrow moved. "I checked it 3 times because I did not want to say rubbish." That got his attention. He followed her. 5 minutes later, the receiving clerk stopped arguing. 10 minutes later, an operations officer was called. 20 minutes later, they found the entry error. It affected more than one supplier. Not fraud, not conspiracy. A workflow mistake after the rejection process had changed the previous month. But money was being calculated from it. Small suppliers were being undercredited. Bode looked at Somto. "How did you see it?" She shrugged. "The numbers did not agree. That is all. At my aunt's catering place, if numbers did not agree, somebody would eventually come and shout." Bode almost laughed. "Very technical method." Somto looked down. "Sorry. I did not say it was bad." The issue was still being discussed in the afternoon when activity around the warehouse changed. People straightened. One supervisor tucked in his shirt. Another stopped eating groundnuts. Somto noticed a dark vehicle outside but paid no attention until Bode said, "Chairman is here." Somto looked up. Niyi Coker walked in wearing a cobalt blue jacket over a white shirt, no tie. He was not surrounded by bodyguards. 2 senior staff followed him. That was all. He shook hands with the warehouse manager and went straight into a review. Somto returned to her work. 20 minutes later, Bode called her. She wiped her palms on her trousers before entering the glass office. Niyi sat at the end of the table. In person, he looked less polished than in photographs, a little older, more tired around the eyes. Bode gestured. This is Somto Nwosu, casual support. She spotted the receiving issue. Niyi looked at her. How? Somto blinked. Sir? How did you know where to look? She glanced at Bode. Bode said nothing. Somto turned back. The rejected crates were first counted when they came down from the truck. Then they were removed from accepted stock. But the total on the bay sheet already reflected the first count. So the deduction happened twice. Niyi leaned back. Did somebody teach you this process? No. What did you do before today? I worked in catering. As what? Somto nearly said everything. Instead, she chose the honest answer. Everything small, sir, Niyi smiled. That is not a job title. No, but what did everything small include? Receiving food, buying list, stock, customer deposits, supplier balances, sometimes costing. Formal training? No debris? No. Somto felt the room change, not cruelly, but reality entering. She added, I learn fast. Niyi looked at Bode. Is there an entry route in supplier operations for someone without a degree? Bode did not answer quickly. There is a trainee support route, but it has assessments. Good. Niyi looked back at Somto. Apply. Somto stared. He did not say, I will give you a job. He did not ask whether she needed money. He did not ask where she slept the night before. Just one word. Apply. Then he moved to the next item on the review agenda. Outside the office, Somto stood still. Bode walked past her. Why are you standing there? I? She looked back at the glass door. Did that just happen? Bode's face stayed serious. Yes. So I have a job? No. The answer was sharp enough to wake her. You have an application form. Do not confuse access with achievement. Somto nodded slowly. Bode continued walking. Then he stopped. And Somto? Yes? Good catch. For the rest of that day, she worked with a strange heat in her chest. Not hope exactly. Hope was too soft a word. Possibility. That night, back at Grace's place, she opened her notebook. Under the 4 lines from the night before, she added another. Tomorrow, ask for trainee form. Grace leaned over from the doorway. What are you writing? Somto covered the page with her palm. Nothing, Grace snorted. You have been in this house 2 days, and already you are hiding state secrets. Somto smiled. For the first time since Ujunwa shut the gate, the smile stayed. The trainee application was not simple. Somto had expected maybe 1 form. There were 3: personal information, education, work history, references. She got stuck at the last section. Previous employer, contact person. She left it blank. At the assessment center, 12 people sat in a room with plastic chairs. Most were younger than Bode, older than Somto, and better dressed. One man had a diploma in logistics. Another woman had worked 2 years in supermarket chain. Somto looked down at her own borrowed powder blue blouse and navy trousers. Grace had pressed them that morning. You will return my blouse, Grace had warned. I know, even if Billionaire gives you private jet. Somto laughed. No private jet. Good. Fuel is expensive. The assessment started. Basic arithmetic. Reading delivery notes. Simple spreadsheet entries. Short written questions. Somto moved slowly on the spreadsheet. Too slowly. Her hands sweated. She made one mistake and had to correct it. On another question, she did not understand the word variance. She raised her hand. The supervisor explained the term, not the answer. Somto finished. 2 days later, she was called for an interview. Bode sat on the panel. That made her more nervous, not less. He asked, "Why do you want this role?" Somto had prepared an answer about growth and opportunity. It vanished. "I like when records agree with what is actually there." One panel member smiled. Bode did not. "What happens when they don't?" "I look for why. And if your manager tells you to leave it?" That question landed differently. Somto thought of the red marker. She looked at Bode. "If it is a small thing with no risk, I will ask what I am missing. And if it is not small, I will not sign my name to what I know is wrong." Bode held her gaze a moment, then wrote something. 3 days later, Mrs. Johnson called. "You got 6 weeks." Somto sat up. "What?" "Trainee placement. 6 weeks probation." Somto pressed the phone to her ear. "Ma, are you sure? Do you want me to give it to somebody else?" "No." "Then stop asking foolish questions." Somto laughed so loudly one of the women in the sitting room looked at her. She called Grace. Grace was downstairs. She still called. Grace answered, "Yes, I got it." Grace looked up through the doorway. "I can see you. I got it." This time Grace smiled. "Good." Somto waited for the bigger reaction. Grace picked up a basket of laundry. "Now, keep it." That was harder. The first week taught Somto how little she knew. At her aunt's kitchen, she had been the person who remembered everything. At Coker Harvest, everybody seemed to know words she had never heard. Batch reconciliation, deviation, purchase order, corrective action, receiving variance, traceability. On Tuesday, she saved a file with the wrong name. On Wednesday, she sent Bode an old version of a stock summary. On Thursday, he returned an incident note covered in comments. Too long. Somto stared at the screen. "You said explain what happened." "Yes, not write family history." She deleted half. He still returned it. "Facts first." She tried again. This time he approved it. On Friday, she entered 12 instead of 21 in one cell. She saw the error after sending the sheet. Her stomach dropped. For 3 minutes, she considered correcting it quietly and pretending nothing happened. Then she remembered the red marker. She walked to Bode's desk. "I made a mistake." He looked at her. "Where?" She showed him. "Did it affect payment?" "Not yet. Can it be corrected?" "Yes." "Then correct it." Somto stood there. Bode looked up. "Anything else?" "I thought you would shout." "For a correctable entry?" Somto said nothing. He leaned back. "I will shout if you hide it, until it becomes a bigger problem." That sentence stayed with her. Not because it was kind, because it was new. A mistake did not always have to become shame. Sometimes it could just become correction. By the end of the second week, Somto had learned how to build a cleaner receiving sheet. By the third, she had stopped calling every senior man Sir. By the fourth, she could explain a discrepancy without apologizing for existing. Niyi Coker did not appear again. Not once. That surprised her. Some childish part of Somto had imagined that once a billionaire noticed you, your life became a film. It did not. Life became Monday morning, bus fare, lunch packed from the night before, a supervisor saying, "This is wrong, do it again," and a small salary due only if you kept showing up. Somto liked that better, because it was something she could understand. Work. Learn. Correct. Try again. No miracle required. The call from Ujunwa came on a Wednesday evening. Somto was standing in a queue for roasted corn. Her aunt's name appeared on the screen. She let it ring twice, then answered. "Good evening, Auntie. So you can still greet." Somto closed her eyes. "Yes, I heard you are working. Small, at Coker Harvest." Somto looked around as if somebody nearby had spoken too loudly. Who told you? Ujunwa ignored the question. Come home. Somto stepped out of the queue. Auntie, enough of this nonsense. You have proved your point. What point? That you can survive outside. Somto almost said, I have not proved that yet. Her probation could still end. The room Grace had helped her find was temporary. Her savings were still thin, but she knew better than to hand Ujunwa that information. I am not coming back. There was silence. Then Ujunwa laughed. You people see small office and lose your senses. Somto stared at the cracked pavement. It is not about office. What is it about? Somto did not answer. Ujunwa answered for her. That chicken? Somto heard a pot lid bang somewhere behind her aunt. You want to destroy family because of chicken? No. Did anybody die? Somto's jaw tightened. That is not the point. Then, what is the point? Somto inhaled. The point is that you asked me to write something I knew was not true. And I told you I would handle it. You wanted my handwriting on it. Ujunwa's voice changed. Lower, sharper. You are becoming very bold. Somto said nothing. You think because one rich company is allowing you to carry paper up and down, you are now better than me? No. Then come home. No. The word still frightened her, but less than before. Ujunwa breathed into the phone. After everything I did for you, there it was, the invoice. Somto looked at the roasted corn cellar, turning cobs over charcoal. Auntie, I know what you did for me. You know? Yes. If you knew, you would not abandon me. Working somewhere else is not abandoning you. You left my business. You told me to leave your house, and you were supposed to come to your senses. People passed Somto on the pavement. Nobody knew that one sentence had just explained 8 years of her life. Ujunwa had never believed the gate would close behind her for good. The threat had been part of the system. Obey or lose the roof. Somto was supposed to fear the roof more than she valued herself. Auntie, she said quietly, I am not coming back. The next words arrived cold. Be careful. Somto frowned. What do you mean? You worked with my money for years. Somto went still. Ujunwa continued. Customers paid through you. Suppliers collected money through you. If something is missing, who do you think people will ask? The street seemed to move farther away. Auntie, what money is missing? I did not say money is missing. You just said, I said be careful. Then the line went dead. Somto did not buy the corn. She walked to the bus stop, then past it. Her heart was beating too hard, not because she had stolen, because innocence and proof were not the same thing. At Ujunwa's business, payments had been messy. Cash in envelopes, transfers to Ujunwa, transfers to Somto when a customer could not reach Ujunwa, supplier cash given to drivers, deposits collected at events. Sometimes Ujunwa would say, pay this person from what came in yesterday. Sometimes there was no receipt until Somto insisted. Sometimes there was no receipt at all. Somto reached her room and locked the door. She opened her bag. The old notebook was still there. Its edges had softened from years of use. She placed it on the bed, then opened her phone. Search. Messages. Dates. Bank alerts. She did not have everything, but she had enough to reconstruct some of what she had handled. She made a new folder. Screenshots, payment confirmations, messages where Ujunwa wrote, give the fish supplier 60 from what Mrs. Bello paid. Another. Keep 10 for transport. Another. I have seen the transfer. Somto did not know if any of it would matter. She only knew this. From now on, she would not trust Manjari with things that could destroy her name. The next morning, she was tired at work. Bode noticed. "You are counting the same page twice." Somto looked down. He was right. "Sorry. Go and drink water. I'm fine." That was not a question. She went. At lunch, she nearly told him about Ujunwa's threat, then stopped. Nothing had happened yet. There was no complaint, no accusation. Only a phone call between relatives. Somto did not want every family problem carried into work, so she did something new. She separated fear from fact. Fact. Ujunwa had threatened to raise questions about money. Fact. Somto had records of some transactions. Fact. No allegation had been made. Fear she could lose everything. Fear was loud. Fact was smaller. She wrote both down. That habit would save her later. For now, it simply helped her finish the shift. 2 weeks before the end of probation, Bode asked Somto to sit in on a review of recurring supplier disputes. She took notes. A woman who supplied dried spices complained that rejected quantities were not being communicated clearly. Another supplier said deductions were arriving without enough explanation. Bode asked the team what could be improved. Nobody spoke. Somto kept looking at the forms. "What?" Bode asked. She raised her eyes. "Nothing. You have been staring at the same box for 5 minutes." Somto pointed. "Maybe this part should be before signature." "What part?" "Reason for rejection. It is already there." "Yes, but after the quantity." "So?" Somto hesitated. "If somebody is rushing, they can sign before noticing the rejection note. At my aunt's place, people always sign where you point." One staff member smiled. Bode did not. "Show me." Somto took a copy. She shifted the rejection reason beside the quantity and added a simple acknowledgement line. Received. Rejected. Reason. Supplier acknowledged. Nothing clever, just harder to misunderstand. Bode studied it. Make a clean version. Somto did. A week later, they tested it on 2 bays. Complaints dropped, not disappeared. Dropped. That distinction mattered to Bode. "Do not say your form solved everything," he told her. "I didn't. I know. I am warning you before success makes you foolish." Somto smiled. At the monthly team review, Bode projected the revised form. This came from Somto. Several heads turned. Somto looked at him. He continued as if nothing unusual had happened. She noticed the communication problem. "We tested her revision. Early results are better. We'll keep measuring." That was all. But Somto carried those 4 sentences home like money. Someone had named her work, not used it and then called it family duty. Named it. 3 days later, her first proper trainee salary entered her account. She stared at the alert, then laughed, then checked again. The amount was not life-changing. The feeling was. She sat on her bed with a calculator. Contribution to Grace's organization. Transport, food, phone data, emergency savings, work shoes. She had been wearing an old pair that pinched her toes after long shifts. At the market that weekend, she found a sturdy black pair. The seller named a price. Somto bargained. They settled. She paid. On the way back, she almost bought a new phone. Hers had a crack along one corner. She stood outside the shop, then opened her banking app. No, not yet. She went home. 2 weeks later, Grace helped her find a room in a shared flat occupied by 2 working women. The room was small, cream wall, 1 window, metal wardrobe, a ceiling fan that made a clicking sound. Somto loved it. On her first night there, she sat on the mattress and counted what remained after rent and deposit. Not much. But no one could demand the balance. No one could say, "I fed you, so hand it over." She put the phone down. The room was quiet. For years, silence in Ujunwa's house meant somebody was angry. Here, silence was simply silence. Somto slept badly. Freedom also took getting used to. At work, probation ended. Bode called her into his office. He pushed a document across the desk. 3-month extension into the trainee program. Somto read it. Not permanent, no. Her face fell before she could stop it. Bode leaned back. Do you want me to lie? No. You still need training. Your computer skills are behind. Your written reports are improving. Your observation is strong. You ask good questions. Sometimes too many. Somto looked up. Is that bad? Ask fewer questions you can answer yourself. She nodded. Bode tapped the paper. This is progress. Sign to. Thank you. Don't thank me, work. She got up. At the door, he added, Somto. Yes, your mistake rate is down. She smiled. Thank you. Bode sighed. Go away. That evening, Niyi Coker appeared again. This time he came for a supplier development briefing. Somto was carrying folders when he saw her. She stopped. Yes, sir. How is it? She considered giving the polite answer. Fine, sir. Thank you, sir. Instead, she said, hard. Niyi laughed. Good. Somto frowned. Good? If it was easy, Bode would be wasting your time. He started walking. Somto followed because they were going in the same direction. I made mistakes. You will make more. That is not encouraging. Niyi glanced at her. It is honest. They reached the meeting room. Before entering, he said, Did you learn why you found that warehouse problem? Somto thought. At first I thought it was because I know stock. And now, because I don't trust one number by itself. Niyi nodded. That is useful. Then he went inside. Again, no check. No personal assistant sent to ask what she needed. No miracle. Somto realized something she would not have understood 2 months earlier. Niyi Coker's greatest effect on her life so far had been very small. He had seen a useful ability in a place where nobody was looking for it. Then he had pointed her toward a door. Everything after that had been work. The supplier development program was announced in the 5th month after Somto left Ujunwa's house. Coker Harvest wanted to expand its network of small local vendors. The program offered training, assessment, and possible contracts for businesses that met operational requirements. Bode explained it during a meeting. We are not giving contracts because somebody has a sad story. He clicked to the next slide. We are not rejecting people because they are small. Another slide. Documentation, food handling, capacity, traceability, delivery reliability, financial basics. Somto wrote quickly. The program interested her, not because of her aunt, because she understood the people it was designed for. Small businesses that knew how to cook, supply, produce, or move goods, but had grown through memory and improvisation rather than systems. Businesses like Ujunwa's. Somto pushed that thought away. 2 weeks later, she could not. She was helping arrange application files when she saw the name. eBay Events and Catering. Her hand stopped. For several seconds, she only stared. The logo was one Ujunwa had designed on a free phone app years earlier. Red spoon, green plate. Somto knew the address. She knew the kitchen. She knew which shelf held dry stock. She knew where Ujunwa kept receipts when she remembered to keep them. The application was sitting inside the company, where Somto was building a new name. Her 2 lives had just entered the same room. She closed the file, then went straight to Bode. He was speaking on the phone. She waited. When he finished, he said, "What?" "My aunt applied." "Your aunt?" "For the supplier program." Bode's expression changed. "What business?" "IB events and catering." He leaned back. "The place you worked?" "Yes." "Any ownership?" "No." "Financial interest?" "No." "Are you involved with the business now?" "No." "Any dispute?" Somto swallowed. "Yes." Bode waited. "She threw me out. We are not on good terms." "That is relevant." "I know. Have you touched the application?" "I saw the name. I closed it." "Good." Somto exhaled. "I want to be removed from anything connected to it." Bode nodded once. "I'll document the conflict and reassign the file." "Will it affect her application?" "Your relationship?" "Yes." "No. The application should stand or fall on its own." Somto looked at him. "And me? What about you?" "Will people think I?" "People think many things." He reached for a form. "Process is what matters." Somto signed the disclosure. As she left his office, relief and dread walked beside each other. She had done the correct thing. That did not mean nothing bad would happen. The application moved to another team. Somto avoided asking about it. At first. Then one afternoon, a colleague named Peter came to her desk. "Somto, this Ebe Catering. You know them, right?" Somto looked up. "Yes." "The owner is your aunt?" "Yes." Peter pulled a chair. "Is the business solid?" Somto's stomach tightened. "Why?" "I'm looking at their capacity section. They say they have handled large events." "They have. So they can do volume?" Somto paused. She knew the answer, or thought she did. The old answer. Months earlier. But businesses changed. Staff changed. Equipment changed. Habits sometimes changed. She remembered Bode's questions. Fact. Inference. Fear. "I cannot assess them," she said. Peter frowned. "I'm not asking official assessment. Just tell me if they are okay." "I have a conflict." "Ah, come on." Somto pushed the file back toward him. "If you need information, use what they submitted and the site assessment." Peter studied her. "You people fought badly." Somto's face hardened. "That is exactly why you should not ask me." Peter lifted both hands. "Fine," he left. Somto sat still. For 1 second, revenge had been available in the easiest form. One sentence, "Be careful with her." That was all she would have needed. She knew which weaknesses to mention, which old mistakes to describe. Maybe nobody would even blame her. But she had refused, not for Ujunwa, for herself. That evening, her aunt called. Somto almost ignored it, then answered, "Yes, auntie." Ujunwa did not greet. "So you have seen it." Somto leaned against the wall of her room. "Seen what?" "My application." "Yes, and?" "And what?" "Do not play with me." Somto closed her eyes. "I disclosed that you are my aunt. I am not involved in the review." "You disclosed?" "Yes." "To who?" "My manager." "Why?" "Because I worked for you and we have a personal conflict." Ujunwa made a sound in her throat. "You went to tell them family matter." "I told them there is a conflict of interest." Big English. "It protects both of us." "Protects me from what?" "From anybody saying I influenced your application." Ujunwa laughed. "No. You want them to know there is problem. Auntie, I know you." Somto almost said, "No, you know the version of me that did not say no." Instead, she stayed quiet. Ujunwa continued, "You are angry because I sent you out. Now you are sitting inside rich man company. You think you can block my opportunity. I removed myself from your application." "Exactly. So you have already told them something." "I told them enough to make sure I cannot touch it." Ujunwa's breathing became audible. "Somto, If that company rejects me because of you. The sentence ended there. Somto waited. What will happen? You will see. The line went dead. Somto put the phone down. Her hands were shaking. She hated that. She hated that Ujunwa could still enter her body through a phone call. Make her shoulders tense. Make her mouth dry. Make her feel 14 again. She sat on the floor, then did what she had learned. She opened the notebook. Fact I disclosed before any assessment. Fact I asked to be removed. Fact I gave no negative information. Fear she will blame me anyway. Somto stared at the last line, then wrote, Her blame is not evidence. The next week, Bode called her into his office. I need you to hear something before rumors reach you. Somto sat. What? Your aunt's site assessment found problems. She went cold. What kind? You do not need the details. Somto nodded quickly. You are right. Application is on hold pending clarification. Okay. Bode watched her. You did not ask anybody about the file after disclosure. No. Message anyone? No. Call the assessment team. No. Good. Somto swallowed. Does she know? She will be informed through the program. Somto already knew what would happen next. Ujunwa would not hear assessment problem. She would hear one name, Somto. The call did not come that day, or the next. That was worse. On the third day, an email reached the compliance office. Formal complaint. Somto did not see it at first. Bode did. He came to her desk. Conference room. His voice was different. Not angry. Official. Somto followed him. Inside were Bode and a woman from internal compliance named Lola Balogun. Lola introduced herself, then placed a printed complaint on the table. We received this from Mrs. Ujunwa eBay. Somto read the first paragraph. Her stomach dropped. The complaint said Somto had a personal grudge. It said she had threatened to use her new position to damage the business. That was false. It said she had access to confidential supplier information. Partly true before recusal. It said she had a special relationship with Chairman Niyi Coker and had used that relationship to influence the assessment. Somto looked up. I did not. Lola's voice stayed calm. We have not concluded that you did. I did not. I understand what you are saying. No, Ma. I really did not. Bode spoke. Somto. She stopped. Lola continued. Because the allegation concerns conflict of interest and possible interference, we need to review access logs, assignment history, your disclosure, and communication relevant to the application. Somto's mouth felt dry. No. Lola glanced at Bode. But until the review is complete, you will be moved away from supplier-facing tasks connected to this intake. Somto stared at Bode. He did not look away. You are moving me, temporarily, but I disclosed. Yes, I did exactly what you told me to do. Yes, and I am still being removed, Lola answered. This is not a finding against you. It is how we keep the review clean. Somto understood the words. Her chest did not. What about Mr. Coker? Bode's expression hardened slightly. What about him? My aunt says I used him. Then the review will look at whether you did. Somto stood. Can he not just say? She stopped herself. Bode waited. She heard how the sentence would sound if she finished it. Can the billionaire not just clear me? The same power she had refused to use against Ujunwa, she suddenly wanted used for herself. Somto sat back down. Lola noticed. Do you want to finish? No, why? Somto looked at the complaint again. Because if Mr. Coker protects me from the process, then my aunt will be right about one thing. Lola's eyebrows lifted. What thing? That I am using him. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Bode slid a notepad toward Somto. Good, so we do it properly. That night, Somto did not sleep. Not properly. She turned from one side to the other until 2 in the morning. At 3, she opened her phone. At 4, she nearly called Grace. At 5, she gave up and boiled water. By 6, she had reached the dangerous place where tired people begin making plans they later regret. She could call Niyi. She had his assistant's office number from internal correspondence. She could ask for 5 minutes, explain everything. He had started this opportunity. Surely he could end the nonsense. Somto stood in her tiny kitchen with the phone in her hand. Then she remembered the day he told her to apply. Not, I will fix it. Apply. She put the phone down. At work, she handed Lola what she had. Her disclosure form. Dates. Work assignments. Messages from Junwa that related to the threat. Her notebook. But when Lola reached for the notebook, Somto held it. Some things inside are personal. Then do not hand over the whole book. Somto blinked. Lola said, mark only what is relevant. We are not entitled to your entire life. That sentence surprised her. Somto went through the pages. She copied only entries connected to customer payments or transactions. Ujunwa might later accuse her of mishandling. She also provided bank alerts and messages she controlled. Nothing more, no fishing expedition, no invitation to search her aunt's life. Just enough to answer the allegation against her. The review took days. Somto worked on internal records away from the supplier team. People noticed. Somebody asked Peter if she had been caught doing something. Peter asked her directly. Are you in trouble? I'm under review. For your aunt's application? Yes. Did you interfere? Somto looked at him. No. Peter nodded, then ran to his desk. That small thing hurt more than if he had questioned her. He had asked. She had answered. And he had allowed the process to continue without making himself judge. At Ujunwa's house, the story was different. Relatives began calling. An older cousin said, Somto, whatever happened, she raised you. Somto replied, I know. You should not fight your mother's sister outside. I am not fighting her. She said you blocked her contract. I did not, then settle it. How? Talk to your people. My people are reviewing her complaint against me. The cousin became quiet. Somto realized most relatives had not heard that part. Ujunwa's version had been simpler. Ungrateful orphan gets rich connection and punishes aunt. A clean story. Wrong. But clean stories travel faster. Somto stopped trying to correct everybody. She had work to do. And for the first time in her life, she was learning that defending your name did not require chasing every mouth that spoke it. The first thing Lola checked was not Somto's notebook. It was the company's own system, who had received the application, who had opened it, who had edited internal notes, who had assigned the site assessment. The answer was painfully ordinary. Somto had seen the application during intake. She had declared the relationship the same day. Bode had reassigned it. After that, Somto's access ended. The site assessment had been selected through the same scheduling process used for other applicants in that intake group. Somto had not chosen the assessors. She had not written their questions. She had not contacted them. She had not entered the findings. That should have made her feel safe. It did not, because Ujunwa's complaint had another part. Money. The complaint said Somto had previously handled customer funds, and that unresolved financial irregularities existed from the period she worked at EB Events and Catering. No amount was stated, no date, no specific customer, just words heavy enough to damage a young woman. Lola called Somto in again. "Did your aunt ever accuse you of stealing before you left?" "No." "Any police report?" "No." "Any written complaint?" "No." "Any deduction from wages?" Somto almost laughed. "What wages?" Lola looked up. Somto regretted the tone. "Sorry, no need." "Explain." "I was not on formal salary. Sometimes she gave me money. Sometimes customers tipped me. Sometimes I used business money for errands and she told me what to pay." "Did you have an account for the business?" "No." "Were customer payments ever made to your personal account?" "Yes." "How often?" "Not always." "When Auntie's transfer limit had problem, or customer could not reach her, or she told them to send to me." "Did you keep the money?" "No. I paid what she instructed or transferred to her." "Can you show that?" "Some." Lola nodded. "Some is fine. Do not manufacture what you do not have." Somto looked at her. The sentence sounded so obvious, yet she needed to hear it. Do not manufacture what you do not have. At home that evening, Somto opened every message thread she could find. She built a simple list. Date. Money received. From whom? What Ujunwa instructed. What Somto did. Supporting message. She left blanks where she could not prove something. The old Somto would have hated the blanks. The new Somto understood them. A blank was better than a lie. 2 days later, Bode saw the table. "You did this?" "Yes, you should have been doing this years ago." Somto gave him a look. "I was doing many things years ago." "Fair." He pointed at one row. "What does this prove?" "That Mrs. Bello sent 120,000 to me." "And?" "That Auntie told me to pay 60,000 to the fish supplier, 25,000 to the drinks supplier, and transfer the balance." "Do you have the transfer?" "Yes." "Then write exactly that." "Do not write. This proves I never stole money." Somto frowned. "Why?" "Because one clean transaction does not prove every transaction was clean." She sat back. "So what is the point?" "The point is to answer specific allegations with specific evidence." That irritated her. Not because Bode was wrong. Because Ujunwa was allowed to throw mud in a wide circle, while Somto had to clean one square at a time. Bode seemed to read her face. "Unfair?" "Yes, maybe. That is all?" "What do you want me to tell you?" "That truth should be easier." Bode folded his arms. "It is not." Somto looked at the table. He continued. "Bad accusations are cheap. Good records are boring. That is why people neglect them." Somto sighed. "You people like making everything into training." Bode's mouth twitched. "You are in a training program." She laughed despite herself. The review found no evidence of financial misconduct by Somto. More importantly, Ujunwa could not identify a specific missing payment connected to her. When asked to provide dates, amounts, customers, or records, she sent vague replies. There were many transactions. She handled plenty cash. "I cannot remember everything." Lola did not call her a liar. She simply wrote that the financial accusation was unsubstantiated. That word mattered. Unsubstantiated. Not impossible, not evil, not dramatic, unsupported. Somto read it 3 times when Lola showed her the conclusion. "Am I cleared?" "On interference with the application and the financial allegation, yes." Somto's shoulders dropped. Only then did she realize how high she had been carrying them. "So I can go back to the supplier team?" "Yes," she smiled, then remembered. My aunt's application? Lola closed the file. That is separate. Somto nodded. Bode, sitting beside her, gave a small approving glance. She had asked, then stopped. The company did not owe her confidential information simply because the applicant was family. That boundary felt strange. Good, but strange. For most of Somto's life, family meant there were no boundaries. Everybody could know everything. Everybody could ask. Everybody could interfere. Now she was learning that respect sometimes looked like not knowing. Ujunwa appealed the supplier decision 2 days later. Somto heard because Lola informed her that her aunt had requested a review of the process and had named Somto again. This time Ujunwa asked that Somto be present. Somto's first answer was no. No, Lola nodded. That is your right, unless we require factual clarification on something you personally handled. I don't want to sit in a room with her. You do not have to decide now. Somto stood. I have decided. She made it to the door, then stopped. What is she saying? Lola did not read the whole appeal. She summarized. She says the business was judged through a process tainted by personal hostility. She says some of the records questioned during assessment were historically managed by you. Somto turned. That part is true. What part? What? I managed many of the records. Lola waited. Somto came back to the chair. If she says the bad records were mine, should I answer? If the review panel asks about a record you actually created, yes. If you know. Somto pressed her lips together. I do not want to help them reject her. This is not about helping them reject her. I also don't want to help her pass if the records are wrong. Also not your job. Somto gave a tired laugh. So what is my job? Tell the truth about what you know. Stop where your knowledge stops. It sounded simple. It was not. Somto left the room and went to the cafeteria. She bought rice she barely touched. Her phone rang. Grace. Somto answered. You are a witch, Grace said. Good afternoon to you too. How did you know to call? I did not. I called because you owe me my blouse. Somto stared. What blouse? The powder blue one. Somto looked down. She had forgotten completely. Grace laughed. What happened? Somto told her. Not every detail. Enough. At the end, Grace asked, do you want your aunt to fail? Somto did not answer quickly. Part of me does. That is normal. I hate that. Normal does not mean you obey it. Somto pushed rice around the plate. What if she says I ruined her life? Did you? No, then do not borrow guilt before it is offered. Somto smiled faintly. Grace continued. And return my blouse. After all this, that is what you care about. It is a good blouse. The appeal meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. Somto agreed to attend only for the section involving her historical role. She wore a simple aqua blouse and navy trousers. No new outfit, no transformation costume. Her hair was braided neatly back. She arrived 10 minutes early. Ujunwa arrived 5 minutes late. Somto heard her before she saw her. Where is the person in charge? Same voice, same speed, same impatience. Then Ujunwa entered. For a moment neither woman moved. Ujunwa wore an emerald dress with ruby-red details at the cuffs. Her head wrap was tied high. She looked well. That surprised Somto. Some part of her had expected punishment to show on Ujunwa's face. It did not. People could be wrong and still sleep. Ujunwa looked Somto up and down. So this is how you dress now. Somto nearly looked at her own clothes. They were ordinary. She realized the comment was not about clothes. It was about distance. Good morning, Auntie. Ujunwa scoffed. Keep your greeting. Lola entered before the exchange could grow. Mrs. Ibi, Miss Nwasu, will begin. The room held no crowd, no employees pressed against windows, no phones recording. There were 4 people besides Somto and Ujunwa, Lola from compliance, Bode, a procurement representative named Marcus Daniels, and the operations manager who supervised the supplier development intake. Niyi Coker was not there. Ujunwa noticed. "Where is chairman?" Marcus answered. "He is not part of this review panel. I requested him, yes." The request was noted, but this girl is here because of him. Somto felt heat rise in her neck. Lola said, "Miss Nwosu is here only because your appeal attributes certain historical records and practices to her." Ujunwa leaned back. "Good, let her answer." The meeting began with procedure. What had been assessed? Why the application had been placed on hold? What Ujunwa disputed? The issue was not one bad carton, it was broader. Some stock records did not reconcile. Some date records were incomplete or changed without a clear reason. The business could not consistently show how certain food items were tracked from purchase to use. 2 documents submitted with the application described controls that the assessment team could not confirm during the visit. Ujunwa argued that small businesses did not keep records like large corporations. Marcus said the program was designed for small businesses. That was why training existed. But there are minimum things we need to see before a supplier enters our network. Ujunwa pointed at Somto. "She kept those records." Marcus turned. "Ms. Nwasu, is that correct?" Somto looked at Ujunwa. Her aunt's eyes dared her to deny it. Somto did not. "I kept some records." "Which?" "Stock notebooks, customer balances, some supplier payments, sometimes receiving notes." "Did you design the entire system?" "No." "Who decided what should be recorded?" "Usually Auntie." Ujunwa interrupted. "Usually?" Lola raised a hand. "Mrs. Ib, let her answer." Somto continued. "If I thought something should be written, I wrote it, but I was not the owner." "Were you responsible for date labels?" "Sometimes I wrote them." Ujunwa sat forward. "There." Somto's fingers tightened under the table. Marcus asked, "Were you authorized to change dates?" Somto looked at him. "What do you mean by change? If a product had one receiving or preparation date, could you replace it with another date on your own decision?" "No." "Did you?" "No." Ujunwa laughed sharply. "So now you are holy." Somto turned toward her. "Auntie, I did not say that. You made mistakes in my business." "Yes." The answer stopped Ujunwa. Somto continued. "I wrote wrong quantities before. I forgot entries. Sometimes I paid people and wrote it later. I was learning by myself." Ujunwa nodded as if victory had arrived. "You hear?" Somto looked at the panel. "But when Auntie told me to change information I believed should not be changed," I argued. "When?" Marcus asked. Somto's throat tightened. She knew the answer would reopen the night she left. "The day I was sent out." Ujunwa slammed her palm lightly on the table. "I did not send you out because of chicken." The room went still. Somto looked at her. "You told me to leave. Because of your behavior." "What behavior?" "Disrespect." "What did I do?" "You refused me in front of workers." "What did you ask me to do?" Ujunwa's mouth opened, then closed. Lola stepped in. "Mrs. Ibe, this meeting is not intended to retry your family dispute." Ujunwa pointed at Somto. "But she is using family dispute here." Somto's heart beat hard. She could feel the old instinct rising. Shrink. Say sorry. Make peace. End the discomfort. Instead, she placed both hands flat on the table. Auntie. Ujunwa turned. Somto's voice was quiet. You raised me. Ujunwa's face shifted. For the first time that morning, pain showed through the anger. Yes. You took me when my parents died. Yes. You paid my school fees. Yes. I have never denied it. Ujunwa stared at her. Somto swallowed. I am grateful. Then why are you doing this? That was the question. Not about records. Not about applications. The real question. Why does gratitude not make you mine? Somto answered carefully. Because gratitude does not mean I must say something is correct when I know it is not. Ujunwa's eyes flashed. Big company has taught you to talk. No. Life taught me. Without my house, where would you be? Somto felt every person in the room disappear for 1 second. There was only the gate again. Her bag on the floor. Ujunwa waiting for her to beg. Somto said, You gave me a roof. Her aunt lifted her chin. Somto finished. But a roof is not ownership. Nobody gasped. Nobody clapped. The air conditioner kept humming. Marcus looked down at his papers. Bode did not move. That made the sentence stronger somehow. It was not a performance. It was a boundary. Ujunwa's face changed color. Ownership? Yes. So I owned you? When I wanted to work somewhere else, you said I was abandoning you. Because you were needed. When customers tipped me, you sometimes kept the money. Because you ate in my house. When I asked what I was earning, you said family does not count money. You think food is free? No. You think school was free? No. Then what are you saying? Somto's voice trembled now. She hated that. She kept going. I am saying you helped me, and I worked for you. Both things can be true. Ujunwa stared. Somto looked away first, not from weakness, because she had said enough. Lola brought the meeting back to the documents. That was where Ujunwa's appeal failed. Not in Somto's speech, not in family pain, in the paperwork. One capacity form claimed temperature and date checks were documented for all relevant chilled stock. The site assessment could not find consistent records. Another form said rejected or questionable items were separated and logged. The physical process during assessment did not match the written description. Several stock entries could not be reconciled to purchase information provided. Marcus gave Ujunwa opportunities to explain. Some she could explain. A missing page had been damaged by water. A supplier used a different name on transfer descriptions. Those explanations were noted. Others she could not. At one point, Ujunwa said, This is how small businesses operate. Marcus shook his head. Some do not. So because I am not a big company, you reject me? No. We are here because you asked us to reconsider. The issue is not that your business is small. The issue is that the controls you described in the application are not consistently present. Ujunwa leaned back. For the first time she looked tired, not defeated. Tired. Somto recognized it. She had seen that face after large events when customers had gone home and dishes covered every surface. Ujunwa had built something real. That mattered. She had built a business from a few pots and family recipes. She had fed weddings, funerals, church programs, birthdays. She had paid school fees from it, paid rent, helped relatives. Her failure here did not erase that. But neither did those good things erase the shortcuts. Marcus closed the file. The panel will conclude after reviewing the appeal points. You'll receive the decision in writing. Ujunwa stood. So I have traveled here for you to tell me later? Lola answered. Yes. Ujunwa looked at Somto. Are you happy? Somto shook her head. No, liar, auntie. I am not happy. Then help me. The words came out differently, not as an order, almost a plea. Somto felt the old reflex. Fix it, find the missing document, rebuild the records, stay late. Do whatever was needed so Ujunwa could succeed. That was Somto's old job, not written anywhere. Still expected, she looked at her aunt. I cannot touch your application. You can tell them. Tell them what? That you know me. I told them what I know. Tell them I am not a bad person. Somto's chest tightened. This is not about whether you are a bad person. Then what is it about? Whether the business is ready? Ujunwa's face hardened again. And who made you expert? Somto almost answered, then stopped. She was not an expert, not yet. I did not say I was. Ujunwa picked up her handbag. You have changed. Somto nodded. Yes. That answer hurt Ujunwa more than denial would have. She walked out. Somto remained seated. Her hands were shaking under the table. Bode waited until the door closed. You okay? No. Good answer. Somto looked at him. What? You are not okay? That is your contribution? He pushed a bottle of water toward her. You want a motivational speech? No. Good. I don't have one. Somto laughed once, then cried, quietly. Bode looked toward Lola. Lola looked toward Marcus. Marcus suddenly became very interested in arranging papers. Nobody told Somto to stop. Nobody said family is family. Nobody told her to forgive. They let her cry for 1 minute. Then she wiped her face. Sorry. Bode sighed. We have discussed this word. Somto almost smiled. Sorry, he pointed at her. Again. That afternoon, Somto returned to work. Not because she was strong, because there were receiving reports due. Life had no respect for dramatic timing. The written decision came 4 business days later. Ujunwa's application was rejected for that intake. Not permanently. Not with a blacklist. The letter listed corrective actions the business would need before applying again. Consistent stock records, clearer date and handling controls, documented rejection procedures, basic separation of business and personal transactions, evidence that stated processes were actually being followed. Somto learned the result only after the process closed, and Bode told her she no longer needed to be recused from general work involving that intake. She did not celebrate. She went to the toilet and sat in a cubicle for 5 minutes. Then she called Grace. My aunt did not get it. Grace was quiet. Are you safe? Yes. Is your job safe? Yes. Did you cause the rejection? No. Then why do you sound guilty? Somto rubbed her forehead. Because I know what that contract could have done for her, Grace answered softly. And you know what getting it before she was ready could have done too. Somto thought of the old chicken, the red marker, the torn labels, the argument. Yes, Grace continued. Some doors should open after people are ready to carry what is behind them. Somto smiled. You are giving motivational speech now. Small one. Bode would complain. Who is Bode? My manager. The one always disturbing you. He says I ask too many questions. He is correct. Somto laughed. For the first time in days, the knot in her chest loosened. At eBay events and catering, the rejection landed badly. Ujunwa told relatives that Somto had won. That word traveled back to Somto. Won. As if family were a football match. One cousin sent a voice note. You have shown her. Hope you are happy now. Somto deleted it. Another said, at least help her fix the papers. Somto did not respond. A third relative, an older uncle named Joseph, called and surprised her. I heard both sides. Somto waited. I am not calling to ask you to go back. She sat down. Okay. I want to ask one thing. Yes. Did your auntie really ask you to change a date? Somto hesitated. Yes. Joseph breathed out slowly. She should not have done that. Somto closed her eyes. It was such a small sentence. Nobody in the family had said it before, he continued. She helped you, that is true. Yes. You worked for her. That is also true. Somto gripped the phone. Yes. People like choosing one truth. She did not know what to say. Joseph cleared his throat. I will talk to her. Not for you. For her. When the call ended, Somto sat still for a long time. She had spent months thinking justice would feel like triumph. It did not. It felt like space. Enough space for two truths to exist, without one swallowing the other. Ujunwa had saved her from a dangerous moment in childhood. Ujunwa had also used that history to control her adulthood. One truth did not cancel the other. At work, Somto's return to supplier operations was quiet. No announcement, no applause. Bode handed her 3 files. You have been away. Catch up. Somto stared at the stack. This is how you welcome people? Yes. No cake? No. Nobody will say we missed you? We did not. Peter passed behind them. We missed her. Bode pointed at him. You have work. Peter walked away laughing. Somto sat. For the first time since the complaint, she felt normal. The next month tested her in a different way. A supplier she liked failed a document check. The owner, an older woman who always brought extra chin-chin for staff, called Somto. My daughter, help me. Somto froze. The phrase was gentle. The request was familiar. Help me just arrange it, Somto asked. What is missing? The woman explained. A record that should have been completed earlier. Can I write it now? The woman asked. For the old date? Yes, we did the thing. We just did not write it. Somto felt the room tilt backward in time. Red marker, old chicken. Ujunwa. She chose her words carefully. If the record was not made then, do not create it now as if it was. But we did it. Then write what you can truthfully confirm now. Explain that the original record is missing. They will fail me. I don't know. Please. Somto swallowed. I can help you understand what they are asking. I cannot help you create a past record. The woman was disappointed, maybe angry. Somto ended the call feeling terrible. Bode had heard enough from his desk. He said, good. Somto turned. Why does doing the right thing always make somebody dislike me? Bode did not look up. Because the wrong thing is often more convenient. She threw a pen at him. It landed short. He finally smiled. The training program ended 2 weeks later. Somto expected another extension. Instead, Bode called her into a meeting with HR. There was a letter on the table. She did not touch it. Am I in trouble again? Bode stared at her. You think every meeting is trouble. Yes, that is unhealthy. The HR officer smiled. Ms. Nwosu, we would like to offer you a junior supplier compliance and operations assistant role. Somto looked from the woman to Bode, then back. Permanent. Subject to the standard employment terms and probation for the role. Yes. Somto read the first line, then the second. Her eyes blurred. She blinked hard. Bode said, do not cry on the contract. Somto laughed. I'm not. You are. I'm not. The HR officer pushed a tissue box toward her. Somto took one. Thank you. Bode leaned back. Now you can thank somebody. HR did paperwork. Somto laughed again. The salary was not billionaire money. It was not even senior manager money. But it was enough to build with, enough to save, enough to plan. Enough to breathe, she signed. When she stepped outside, Niyi Coker was walking through the corridor with 2 executives. He saw her holding the letter. Good news? Somto nodded. I got the role. Niyi stopped. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. He looked at Bode through the glass office. Did he make you suffer? Yes, yes. Niyi laughed. Bode, seeing them, frowned suspiciously from inside. Somto lowered her voice. Very much. Good man. Somto shook her head. You people are the same. Niyi started to move on. Then Somto said, Sir. He stopped. People say you changed my life. The executives beside him became politely interested in the wall. Niyi looked at Somto for a moment, then at the employment letter in her hand. I changed 1 door. Somto said nothing. He nodded toward the paper. You are the one who kept walking, and that was all. No speech, no promise of wealth, no fatherly blessing. He left for his meeting. Somto stood there with the letter. For months, she had thought about that first day in the warehouse. What if the count had not been wrong? What if she had kept quiet? What if Niyi had not visited? Chance mattered. Of course it did. Pretending otherwise would be dishonest. But chance had only created a moment. She had still needed the courage to speak, the patience to learn, the humility to admit mistakes, the discipline to keep records, the restraint not to use her aunt's weaknesses against her. A door could open by luck. Walking through it was something else. Permanent employment changed Somto's problems. It did not remove them. That was one of the first adult lessons nobody had warned her about. When she had no steady income, all she wanted was steady income. When she got it, she discovered rent renewal, transport costs, family requests, training fees, office expectations, the quiet pressure to look as if you were doing better than you actually were. She also discovered that a salary could disappear in respectable ways. One Saturday, she opened her banking app and stared at the balance, then at the list she had written. Rent reserve, emergency savings, transport, food, data, professional course, she sighed. Her roommate, Titi, looked over from the other bed. What happened? I thought permanent job meant I would stop calculating every naira. Titi laughed so hard, she nearly dropped her cup. Who told you that? Nobody. Good, because the person lied. Somto smiled. She put the phone down. There was still satisfaction in the numbers, not because they were large, because they were hers to decide. That distinction never became ordinary. At work, Bode began giving her more responsibility. Not dramatic responsibility, the kind that made people yawn when you explained it at parties. Reviewing supplier documents, checking whether corrective actions had evidence, preparing short notes for site teams, following up when small vendors misunderstood requirements. Somto became good at that last part. She knew what it felt like to read a form written by someone who had forgotten that beginners existed. One afternoon, a small bakery owner called 3 times because he could not understand a corrective action template. Peter muttered, "Send him the guidance note. He says he read it. Then he should read it again." Somto looked at the note. 3 pages. Dense language. She called the man back. "Sir, let us take it 1 line at a time." 20 minutes later, he understood. Bode watched from across the room. After the call, he said, "You spent too long." He was confused. "We cannot do 20-minute tutorials for everybody, I know. So?" Somto held up the guidance note. "This thing is written like the person already knows what it means." Bode frowned. It was written by compliance. Yes, that is not an argument. It is small argument. He almost smiled. Somto continued. What if we make one simple checklist? Who is we? She pointed at herself. Me. That is not we. Fine. What if I make one? For what? For small suppliers before they submit. Basic things. Records. Stock. What not to backdate. What to separate. How to answer when a document is missing instead of inventing one. Bode leaned back. That last sentence got him. Why, what not to backdate? Somto looked at him. He understood. Right. She drafted the checklist. It was ugly. Too long. Bode returned it. Cut half. She cut a quarter. He returned it again. Half. She complained. He ignored her. After 4 drafts, the checklist fit on 2 pages. Plain language. Keep business money separate where possible. Record stock when the event happens, not weeks later. If a record is missing, state that it is missing. Do not create an old record today and pretend it was written before. Keep supplier receipts. Write who checked rejected goods and why. If one person does many roles, still make responsibilities clear. Ask questions before submitting. Bode read the final version. This is useful. Somto stared at him. Say it again. No, I want to record it. Get out. The company tested the checklist in a small pre-application session. Somto was asked to explain 2 sections. She stood before 14 business owners in a training room. Her mouth went dry. She had spoken in meetings, not like this. Bode stood at the back. Niyi was not there. Good. That somehow reduced the pressure. Somto looked at the people in front of her. A woman who sold packaged spices. A man with a cold room business. 2 sisters who ran a bakery. A caterer older than Ujunwa. People who knew their products. People who might still be intimidated by paperwork. Somto started badly. Good morning. My name is Somto Nwosu, and today I will be... Her voice sounded like somebody else's. She stopped. Bode raised an eyebrow. Somto looked down at the checklist, then abandoned the opening she had memorized. Let me tell you the easiest mistake to make when business is busy. The room changed. People looked up. You say, I will write it later. A few smiled. Somto continued. Later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Then, somebody asks what happened, and everybody starts using memory. A man in front laughed. That one is true. Memory is useful, Somto said. But when money, food, stock, or responsibility is involved, memory can become quarrel. More heads nodded. Now she had them. She explained records without insulting people who did not have sophisticated systems. She did not pretend every small business needed expensive software. A notebook could be useful if it was consistent. A spreadsheet could help if somebody actually updated it. A form was worthless if staff filled it only when visitors were coming. She used simple examples. If 10 cartons arrived and 2 were rejected, write what happened while people still remember. If a receipt was missing, write that it was missing and find lawful support if available. Do not create a false old receipt because you are afraid of looking disorganized. One woman raised her hand. But if we write that record is missing, will company not reject us? Somto answered honestly. I cannot promise what decision will be made, but a missing record is one problem. A false record can become a trust problem too. Bode's face at the back gave nothing away. After the session, he waited until everybody left. You were good. Somto packed her papers slowly. What happened to too long? You were still too long. There he is. But good. She smiled. That evening, she wrote in her old notebook. Not the work notebook. The first one. The one from Ujunwa's kitchen. She turned past old supplier amounts and customer deposits. On a clean page near the back, she wrote, "Teach what would have helped me." Then she closed it. Months passed. Not quickly. Stories often skip months in one sentence. Life does not. Somto lived those months one bus ride at a time, one shift at a time, one late salary alert at a time, one mistake, one correction, one difficult phone call, one Saturday washing clothes, one Sunday deciding whether she could afford meat for the week. She completed a professional short course, partly supported by the company. She failed one module test the first time. That embarrassed her more than she admitted. Titi found her studying at midnight. "You are still awake? I failed." "Did they sack you?" "No." "Did the world end?" "No." "Then sleep." Somto threw a pillow at her. She retook the assessment, passed. At work, she learned to disagree without sounding afraid. That took longer. One day, Peter proposed approving a corrective action based on photographs alone. Sub said, "I don't think the pictures answer the actual issue." Peter looked surprised. 6 months earlier, she would have wrapped the sentence in 5 apologies. Now she explained why. Peter checked. She was right. Another day, she challenged something and was wrong, Bode explained. She accepted it. That mattered too. Confidence was not becoming certain about everything. Sometimes it was surviving being wrong. Her contact with Ujunwa became rare. A birthday message. A short holiday greeting. Nothing more. Joseph occasionally told her how the catering business was doing. "Your auntie has hired one girl." Somonto's stomach tightened. "Does she pay her?" Joseph laughed. "I asked the same thing, and she said yes." "How much?" "That one I did not ask." Somto almost called Ujunwa, then stopped. Not her business. That boundary still required practice. Later Joseph said Ujunwa had started using a simple daily stock sheet. Somto did not know whether to laugh or cry. Who made it? She paid somebody. That made Somto laugh. For years, Somto's work had been invisible because it came from a niece. Now Ujunwa was paying someone else to do part of it. There was justice in that. Small justice. Useful justice. No ruin required. Nearly a year after Somto left the house, she moved again. This time, not because anybody had thrown her out. Her shared flat had served her well, but she wanted a place of her own. Nothing luxurious. A compact one-bedroom apartment, farther from the office than she preferred, but within what she could afford. The first agent showed her a place with water stains across the ceiling. "No," she said. The second had a generator contribution that would swallow too much of her salary. "No." The third had a landlord who wanted payment terms she could not manage. "No." Each no surprised her, not because landlords cared. Because she no longer heard Ujunwa's voice behind the word. "You are ungrateful. You are difficult. You think you are too much." Sometimes no was simply arithmetic. The fourth place was modest. Cream walls, tiled floor, a small kitchen, metal security door, water arrangement she could live with. The bedroom window faced another building, not a beautiful view. Somto stood in the middle of the room. The agent said, "Madam, this one will go fast." She rolled her eyes. "Everything goes fast according to agents." He laughed. "You know Lagos." "I am learning." She paid only after reading the agreement and confirming what she could. Bode would have been proud. She did not tell him that. On the day she collected the key, she held it in her palm for a long time. One small piece of metal. Nothing special, except no one could threaten to take the roof because she disagreed with them at dinner. She called Grace first. I got a place. That is all? Good. What do you want? Maybe excitement? Have you checked the water? Somto laughed. Yes. Light? As much as anybody can promise. Locks? Yes. Then I am excited. Somto shook her head. You people refuse to be dramatic in my life, Grace said. That is why you are still alive. They both laughed. Somto invited Grace and Titi for a small meal after moving. Peter came. Even Bode came, though he claimed he was only nearby. You live 30 minutes from my route, Somto said. Nearby. He brought a plastic food container set. Somto stared at it. What kind of gift is this? Useful? Titi whispered. This man is exactly how you described him. Bodhi heard. I hope she described me accurately. She said you disturb people. That is accurate. The apartment filled with laughter. Somto cooked jollof rice. Not Junwa's recipe exactly. Close. Some things from that house belonged in her life because they were good. Not everything had to be rejected to prove she had left. That idea brought more peace than anger ever had. After everyone left, Somto washed plates. At 11:16, her phone rang. Ujunwa. Somto stared. She almost let it go, then answered. Good evening, Auntie. Are you sleeping? Not yet. I heard you moved. Somto looked around the tiny kitchen. Yes. You could not tell me? Somto said nothing. Ujunwa sighed. Fine, another silence. Then, I want to ask you something. Somto waited. Your company still does that supplier program. Her hand stopped over the sink. Yes. Every year? I don't know the exact schedule. Can somebody apply again? Somto leaned against the counter. If they meet the requirements and the program is open, I think so. But I cannot tell you what future intake will decide. Ujunwa clicked her tongue. You people like careful answer. Somto nearly smiled. What do you need? I want training. Somto did not speak. Ujunwa rushed on as if silence might stop her. Not from you. Just tell me where. That detail mattered. Somto dried her hands. There are small business food safety and record-keeping trainings. Some organizations run them. I can send public information. Send. I will. Ujunwa cleared her throat, then said, that stock paper you people use. Somto's eyes narrowed. What stock paper? The simple one. I don't know which one you mean. Your Uncle Joseph said you teach people. Somto closed her eyes. Of course, Joseph had told her. There are templates. Send me one. Somto hesitated. A template was public enough. But the old pattern was close. Help me. Do it for me, she said. I can send a basic example. You will need to set up your own process. You cannot help me arrange it? There it was. Somto looked at the key on the counter. I have helped you before, Auntie. Ujunwa went quiet. Somto continued. This time you have to do your own work. Her aunt's breathing changed. For 1 second, Somto expected the old explosion. After everything I did for you. Ungrateful. Proud. Instead, Ujunwa said, You talk like Bode now. Somto froze. How do you know, Bode? You mentioned your manager before. Somto laughed despite herself. He would be offended. Good. The joke surprised both of them. Silence returned. Less sharp this time. Ujunwa said, Send the information. I will. Good night. Good night, Auntie. The call ended. Somto stood in the kitchen. No apology. No grand reconciliation. No confession. Ujunwa had not said, I was wrong. Somto had not said, I forgive you. Maybe one day those words would come. Maybe not. But something had changed. Ujunwa had asked where to learn. Somto had offered information without surrendering responsibility. A small boundary, a small repair. Real life was full of small things that would look disappointing on a stage. Somto had started to trust them. 2 weeks later, Ujunwa sent a message. Training was expensive. Somto read it and knew what was coming. "Can you pay?" Her shoulders tensed. Then another message appeared. "Do you know cheaper one?" Somto smiled. She sent 2 options. No money, no lecture. Later, Joseph told her Ujunwa had attended one. She complained throughout. Somto laughed. "That sounds like her." But she went. "Yes. She is paying the new girl every month now." Somto became quiet. Joseph added, "I checked." "Uncle, what? You are investigating her?" "No, I am an old man. We call it conversation." Somto laughed. Then Joseph said something she carried for days. "Sometimes people do not change because they finally understand your pain. Sometimes they change because the old way stopped working." Somto wrote that down. At Coker Harvest, the supplier pre-application sessions grew. The 2-page checklist became part of a basic orientation pack. Somto's name was not printed in huge letters. There was no ceremony, but Bode knew who started it. So did she. During one session, a young woman stayed behind after everyone else left. She ran a small catering service with her older sister. She held the checklist against her chest. "Can I ask something personal?" Somto was cautious. "Depends." The woman smiled nervously. "My sister says because we are family, we don't need to write salary. We just take money when we need." Somto looked at her. The room seemed to narrow. Not because the story was identical, it was not. Maybe the sisters were happy. Maybe they trusted each other. Maybe their system worked. Somto refused to turn her own history into a universal rule. She asked, "Do both of you agree on that?" The woman hesitated. Mostly. Mostly. She is older. Somto nodded. "Then maybe start with clarity. Who owns what? Who takes what? What money belongs to the business? What money belongs to each person? You don't need to fight before you write things down." The woman looked relieved. "I thought you would tell me to leave the business." "No." Somto smiled. "I don't know your family." That answer mattered. Somto had learned another danger. Pain could make a person believe every situation was their situation. It was not. Respecting people also meant refusing to colonize their lives with your own experience. The woman thanked her and left. Bode had heard the last part. "You are getting better." Somto packed her laptop. "At what?" "Not answering questions nobody asked." She stared at him. "That sounds like insult." "It is praise. You need training. I manage." Months later, Niyi asked Somto to join a small internal panel discussing supplier education. By then, she could sit across from him without feeling that a billionaire had entered the room. He was still wealthy, still powerful, still the founder, but work had made him human-sized. He asked questions, got irritated, changed his mind sometimes, rejected bad proposals, approved others. Somto presented feedback from small suppliers. One executive suggested requiring a particular software tool for all vendors. Somto spoke. "That may create a barrier for businesses that can keep adequate records another way." The executive said, "Software improves consistency." "It can. So?" Somto took a breath. "If the control we need is accurate records, we should specify the control. If we require one tool when other methods can meet the same standard, we may exclude people for the wrong reason." Niyi looked at her. "Alternative? Minimum record fields. clear examples. Then allow acceptable formats. Unless there is a real system reason, we need integration. The executive considered it. That is fair. Meeting moved on. Afterward, Niyi caught up with her. You argued with a director. Somto stiffened. I disagreed. Same family. Was I disrespectful? No. Then why are you saying it like that? Niyi smiled. Because the first day I met you, you were afraid to breathe in the meeting room. Somto looked at him. I was not afraid to breathe. You were, she laughed. Maybe small, he nodded. Small can become medium. Somto stopped walking. Who told you that? Told me what? She remembered Grace at the breakfast table after the worst night of her adult life. Excel? Small. Small can become medium. Somto smiled. Nothing. Niyi walked on. That afternoon, she called Grace. You are now inside Billionaire mouth, Grace said. What? Somto explained. Grace laughed until she coughed. I should charge consultancy fee. You only said 5 words. High-value words. Somto ended the call still smiling. There were moments when she wondered what would have happened if Ujunwa had not thrown her out. The question became less painful with time. Maybe she would eventually have left. Maybe not. Maybe she would still be writing customer balances in that small notebook and calling it help. Maybe the business would have grown. Maybe she would have become indispensable and therefore even harder to release. She did not romanticize the eviction. Being thrown out without secure housing had been dangerous. She had been lucky to know Grace, lucky to have her documents, lucky to find temporary work quickly. Lucky the warehouse mistake happened. Lucky Niyi visited on the right day. Those were facts too. People loved stories where success proved the suffering was necessary. Somto did not believe that. Ujunwa did not need to throw her out for Somto to deserve a future. Pain was not tuition. Cruelty was not a scholarship. The useful lesson was elsewhere. When the bad thing happened, Somto had made choices. She called for safe help instead of sleeping outside to prove strength. She kept her documents. She told the truth about what she could do. She accepted entry-level work without pretending it was beneath her. She spoke when numbers did not agree. She disclosed a conflict even when silence might have been easier. She allowed a fair review to examine her own conduct. And when the same shortcuts returned in kinder voices, she still said no. That was the part she owned. One Friday evening, almost 18 months after the night of the gate, Somto received a message from Ujunwa. Photo. Somto opened it. A shelf in the catering kitchen, clear labels, dates, simple stock cards clipped at the side, not perfect, but organized. Under the picture, Ujunwa wrote, C. Somto stared for a long moment, then typed, better. She deleted it. Too much like Bode. She typed again, looks good, auntie. Ujunwa replied immediately, we are applying again when intake opens. Somto smiled, then wrote, please follow the process. I will recuse myself again if needed. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I know. Somto put the phone down. That I know was not an apology, but it carried more respect than many apologies she had heard in her life. Later that year, a new supplier intake opened. EB Events and Catering applied again. Somto disclosed the relationship again. No drama, no accusation, no secret involvement. She did not follow the file. Weeks passed. One afternoon, she received a message from Ujunwa. We passed first stage. Somto smiled. Congratulations. Another message came. Do not tell me congratulations yet. These people ask too many questions. Somto laughed aloud at her desk. Bode looked over. What? My aunt? He frowned as if bracing for trouble. She applied again, and first stage. Bode nodded. Good. Somto looked at him. That is all. Yes. You really have no drama inside you. I have work. Ujunwa's business did not suddenly become a major supplier. The later assessment found two smaller issues that required correction. This time, instead of calling Somto to arrange them, Ujunwa hired a consultant for one session and made her staff fix the process. Several months later, she entered a limited vendor category. Not the largest contract, not a fortune, a beginning. Joseph called Somto. Your auntie is walking like governor. Somto laughed. She earned this one. The words surprised her. She meant them. Ujunwa had failed, been angry, blamed Somto, then eventually done the work. Somto did not need to deny that because of the past. Accountability was not a wish that somebody remain punished forever. Sometimes the most satisfying consequence was that the person finally had to meet the standard they once mocked. Before that family visit, another small test came. Niyi's office offered Somto a place in a professional development program partly funded by the company. It was not reserved for her. 3 junior staff were nominated, and each person had to submit a short statement explaining how the course related to their work. Somto stared at the form. Peter leaned over. Why are you looking at it like court summons? I hate these questions. Which one? Describe your professional goals. Peter laughed. You have professional goals. I have goals. I don't know if they are professional. What is the difference? Somto looked at him. That is what I am asking. She carried the form to Bode. He refused to write it for her. Tell me what to say. No, just small. No. You helped me with incident notes. I corrected incident notes. This is your application. Somto frowned. So you will allow me to lose opportunity because of grammar. If grammar is the problem, I will help with grammar after you write what you mean. She sat at her desk and spent 40 minutes deleting sentences that sounded like somebody else. I aspire to leverage my experience. Delete. I am passionate about transformative supplier ecosystems. Delete. She groaned. Peter looked over. Who are you fighting? English. Eventually, Somto wrote what she actually meant. She wanted to help small suppliers build systems that were strong enough to protect both their businesses and the people who depended on them. She wanted to understand compliance beyond forms. She wanted to become the kind of person who could explain standards without making people feel stupid. Bode read it. He crossed out one repeated sentence, then handed it back. This is you. Somto looked at the page. It sounds too simple. Simple is not stupid. She submitted it. 2 weeks later, she was selected. The course required 1 Saturday every month for 6 months. On the first day, Somto entered the classroom and saw people with degrees, titles, and years of experience. Old Fear sat beside her. Who are you? She nearly kept quiet through the entire session. Then the facilitator presented a case about a small food supplier whose records looked complete, but had all been filled out in the same handwriting at the end of the week. What is the risk? He asked. Hands went up. Somto raised hers too. If the records are being reconstructed later, they may show what people think happened instead of what actually happened. The facilitator nodded. And why does that matter? Somto thought of Ujunwa, of herself, of all the times she had written after the fact, because the kitchen was too busy. Because once something goes wrong, memory starts protecting people. The room became quiet. The facilitator smiled slightly. That is a very good way to put it. Somto wrote the sentence down, not because she had invented wisdom, because she knew its price. When the 6-month program ended, Niyi congratulated the group in a short meeting. He shook Somto's hand exactly as he shook the others. No special photograph, no envelope, no promise that she would become a director. Somto appreciated that more than she could explain. Once, she had thought dignity meant being treated as special after suffering. Now she understood another version. Sometimes dignity was being treated by the same standard as everybody else, with enough support to meet it. Somto visited Ujunwa's house for the first time nearly 2 years after leaving. Not to move back, not to work. Joseph was celebrating his 70th birthday, and the family gathering was there because Ujunwa had the space and was catering. Somto almost declined, then chose to go. She wore a burnt orange top, not intentionally. Only after dressing did she remember the blouse from the night she left. This one was newer, cleaner cut. She paired it with light aqua trousers. When she arrived, the gate was open. For a second, her feet stopped. Memory was physical like that, the pavement, the bag, the metal clang. Then Grace's old instruction returned. Sleep first. Tomorrow we deal with money. Somto breathed and entered. The kitchen was busy. Ujunwa stood near the counter in a ruby-red blouse and deep emerald wrapper, shouting about onions. Some things had not changed. Who cut this one so big? Are we feeding goats? A young assistant laughed. Ujunwa turned, saw Somto. The room seemed to hold still only for them. Then Ujunwa said, "You are late." Somto looked at the wall clock. "I am 10 minutes early. Early according to office people." Somto almost smiled. "Good afternoon, Auntie." Ujunwa looked at her clothes. Orange again. Somto blinked. "You remember? Do you think I have no eyes?" The answer landed softly. Ujunwa looked away first. "Food is inside. I can help carry plates." Ujunwa turned back sharply. "You came as guest." Somto stared. A small sentence. Easy to miss. You came as guest, not work, not unpaid niecist. Somto nodded. Okay. She went to greet Joseph. During the party, relatives approached with the usual questions. When will you marry? Are you still working with the billionaire? Have you bought car? Why are you renting so far? Somto answered what she wanted, ignored what she did not. Nobody died. The family survived boundaries that amused her. Near the end, Ujunwa brought a covered bowl. Take this home. Somto laughed. I have food. Take it, Auntie. Somto. Same tone as years ago. For one dangerous second, both women remembered. Then Ujunwa stopped. She exhaled. Do you want it? Somto looked at her. The question was so small it nearly broke her. Do you want it? Not take it because I said. Somto smiled. Yes. Ujunwa handed her the bowl. Good. No hug. Not then. Somto left with jollof rice and chicken in a plastic container. At the gate she turned. Ujunwa was watching from the doorway. Somto lifted one hand. Ujunwa lifted hers. Then Somto went home. Her own home. The apartment had changed since she first moved in. A second-hand bookshelf stood against one wall. A small dining table sat near the window. On it were training notes, 2 pens, her employee ID, and a new notebook. Somto put the food in the fridge, then emptied her handbag. Phone, wallet, keys, the old notebook. She still carried it sometimes, though she no longer needed it for work. Its cover was bent. The first pages held another woman's business. customer names, supplier amounts, lists of ingredients. Numbers Somto once believed proved only that she was useful to Ujunwa. Now the notebook meant something else. Evidence that she had been learning before anyone called it training. Evidence that unpaid work could still contain real skill. Evidence that gratitude and exploitation could exist in the same house. Evidence that leaving did not erase what was good, and that keeping what was good did not require returning to what was harmful. Somto placed the notebook on the table. Beside it, she put the new one. Her name was written on the cover, Somto Enduosu. Underneath, supplier development notes. Then she placed her apartment key between them. For a while, she stood looking at the three things. Old work, new work, her own door. Outside, somebody's generator coughed to life. A neighbor laughed in the corridor. A bus horn sounded far away. Ordinary Lagos evening. Somto touched the key once, then switched off the light. There is a kind of help that lifts a person, and there is another kind that quietly keeps a hand around their neck while demanding gratitude for the grip. The difference is not always obvious at the beginning. A roof can be kindness. School fees can be sacrifice. Family support can save a life. But none of those things should require an adult to surrender honesty, wages, boundaries, or the right to build a future. And opportunity has its own lesson. The person who opens a door matters. So does the system that allows somebody without perfect credentials to be seen. But the person walking through still needs skill, discipline, correction, and the courage to refuse shortcuts when shortcuts would be easier. Somto's life did not change because a billionaire chose her for rescue. It changed because one powerful man noticed what others had overlooked, then allowed a fair process to test it. After that, the work was hers. So were the mistakes. So were the choices. And, at last, so was the key.